Welcome to History for Snooze. Every page of history holds the footprints of time, the joy of festivals, the echo of footsteps on cobblestone streets, and the strange traditions that once brought people together. Here, we will travel back to the past, slowly, gently, so we can almost see the movements of another era. Tonight, our story drifts into the curious world of medieval dance history, from solemn circle dances performed in churchyards, to the lively steps of peasants at harvest feasts, and even the mysterious, almost frightening outbreaks of the so-called dancing plague that swept through medieval towns. These unusual traditions remind us how rhythm and ritual shaped daily life long ago. Before we start, dim the lights, settle into a comfortable spot, and let the world outside fade away. I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Your small gesture is my greatest inspiration to keep telling these stories. And in the comments, let me know where in the world you're listening from. I'd love to know how far these stories travel. Now, close your eyes and join me on this quiet journey, where history is not just a record of events, but a soft-spoken story that will guide you toward peace, and maybe even toward sleep. Medieval wired dance represents one of the most enigmatic and technically sophisticated performance arts of the Middle Ages, emerging from the intersection of theatrical spectacle, religious ceremony, and mechanical innovation. This intricate art form, which flourished primarily between the 12th and 15th centuries, involved performers suspended and manipulated by complex systems of wires, pulleys, and counterweights to create the illusion of supernatural flight, divine intervention, and otherworldly movement. Origins and early development. The origins of medieval wired dance can be traced to the Byzantine Empire of the 10th century, where court entertainers began experimenting with silk threads and bronze mechanisms to enhance theatrical performances during religious festivals. The earliest documented reference appears in the Chronicle of Theophanes Continuatus, which describes performers at the court of Constantine VII Porphyrogenitus suspended by threads finer than spider's silk during the Feast of the Epiphany in 945 C. These early experiments were crude by later standards, utilizing simple rope and pulley systems operated by hidden stagehands, but they established the fundamental principle that would define the art form, the creation of seemingly impossible movement through concealed mechanical means. The Byzantine innovations drew heavily from the empire's extensive knowledge of siege warfare technology, particularly the sophisticated pulley and counterweight systems used in catapults and other military engines. Master engineers who had designed defensive mechanisms for Constantinople's walls found their expertise equally applicable to creating the illusion of human flight. The imperial workshops of the Great Palace became centers of experimentation, where craftsmen developed increasingly refined methods for creating nearly invisible support systems that could elevate performers to unprecedented heights within the Hagia Sophia and other imperial venues. The political implications of these early performances cannot be understated. Byzantine wired dance served not only religious purposes but also functioned as demonstrations of imperial power and technological superiority. Foreign diplomats and visiting dignitaries witnessed performances that seemed to defy natural law, reinforcing the Byzantine claim to divine favor and technological preeminence. The carefully guarded secrets of wired dance construction became state assets, with master craftsmen sworn to secrecy and foreign attempts to replicate the technology actively discouraged through diplomatic and occasionally military means. The technique spread westward through trade routes and diplomatic exchanges, finding fertile ground in the wealthy Italian city-states of the 11th century. Venice, with its sophisticated maritime technology and Byzantine connections, became an early center of innovation. Venetian craftsmen, already skilled in the manufacture of complex rigging for ships, adapted their knowledge to create the first truly sophisticated wired dance apparatus. The Venetian system, known as the Celeste Machina, or Heavenly Machine, employed a network of nearly invisible silk wires controlled by an elaborate system of weighted wheels and counterbalanced levers hidden beneath the performance stage or within the walls of performance spaces. The maritime influence on Venetian wired dance development proved particularly significant in advancing the safety and reliability of these systems. Shipbuilders' expertise with load-bearing calculations and stress distribution translated directly to the challenges of supporting human performers at height. The famous Arsenal of Venice, renowned throughout Europe for its shipbuilding prowess, secretly produced many of the most sophisticated wired dance apparatus of the medieval period. Master shipwrights applied their understanding of rigging dynamics and structural engineering to create systems that could support multiple performers simultaneously while maintaining the illusion of effortless flight. Archaeological and physical evidence. The Cathedral of San Marco in Venice hosts the earliest surviving physical evidence of medieval wired dance infrastructure, discovered during restoration work in the 1960s. Hidden within the cathedral's dome structure, archaeologists found the remains of an intricate pulley system dating to approximately 1150 CE, complete with grooved bronze wheels, silk thread fragments, and small iron counterweights bearing the marks of Venetian craftsmen. This system was likely used during the annual Feast of the Ascension, when a performer representing Christ would appear to rise miraculously toward the cathedral's ceiling while blessing the congregation below. Recent archaeological investigations have revealed additional evidence of medieval wired dance installations throughout Europe. The Cathedral of Chartres, famous for its Gothic architecture and stained glass windows, concealed within its structural framework an elaborate system of guide wires and anchor points that archaeologists have dated to the early 13th century. These discoveries have revolutionized understanding of how medieval architects incorporated performance considerations into their building designs, creating structures that served simultaneously as houses of worship and sophisticated theatrical venues. Carbon dating analysis of silk thread fragments recovered from various cathedral sites has provided valuable information about the materials and trade networks that supported medieval wire dance. Isotopic analysis reveals that silk used in Northern European installations originated primarily in Byzantine and Italian sources, indicating the existence of specialized supply chains dedicated to wired dance applications. The consistency of processing techniques across different geographical regions suggests the existence of shared technical standards and possibly traveling master craftsmen who standardized construction methods across Europe. Metallurgical examination of surviving bronze and iron components has revealed sophisticated alloy compositions optimized for specific mechanical properties. Medieval craftsmen developed bronze formulations that provided optimal strength-to-weight ratios for pulley wheels, while iron counterweights incorporated carbon content carefully controlled to achieve precise weight specifications. These technical achievements demonstrate a level of materials science knowledge that challenges traditional assumptions about medieval technological capabilities. Ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted at major cathedral sites have identified previously unknown subterranean chambers and tunnel systems associated with wired dance operations. These underground spaces, carefully concealed from public view, housed the complex control mechanisms and provided secure working areas for the operators who manipulated the performance systems. The sophisticated engineering required to construct these hidden chambers while maintaining the structural integrity of the cathedral foundations reveals the priority placed on wired dance capabilities in medieval ecclesiastical architecture. Technical innovation and mechanical sophistication. The technical sophistication of medieval wire dance reached its zenith in the workshops of northern Italy during the 13th and 14th centuries. Master craftsmen known as mechanicus scenicus developed increasingly complex systems capable of supporting multiple performers simultaneously while allowing for intricate choreographed movements. These systems typically consisted of three primary components: the support structure, the control mechanism, and the concealment apparatus. The support structure utilized specially treated silk threads, often no thicker than modern dental floss, woven into patterns that distributed weight evenly across multiple contact points on the performer's body. These threads were attached to a harness system concealed beneath elaborate costumes, with connection points carefully placed to maintain the performer's balance while allowing for natural-looking movement. The silk processing techniques developed specifically for wired dance applications represented significant advances in textile technology. Medieval craftsmen developed methods for treating raw silk fibers with natural compounds that increased tensile strength while maintaining flexibility and near invisibility. The process involved soaking silk fibers in solutions containing tree resins, beeswax, and other organic materials, followed by controlled stretching and aging procedures that could take months to complete. The resulting threads possessed strength characteristics that approached those of modern synthetic materials while retaining the natural luster and texture that made them effectively invisible under medieval lighting conditions. The control mechanism represented the most sophisticated aspect of medieval wired dance technology. Master mechanici developed systems of pulleys, counterweights, and manual controls that allowed a single operator to manipulate multiple performers with remarkable precision. The operator, known as the magister machini, required years of training to master the complex timing and coordination necessary to create convincing performances. These operators worked from concealed positions, often in specially constructed chambers beneath the performance space or behind false walls, manipulating an array of ropes, levers, and weighted devices that translated their movements into the graceful flight of the performers above. Advanced control systems incorporated mechanical advantage principles that enabled operators to achieve smooth, controlled movements with minimal physical effort. Compound pulley arrangements provided leverage ratios that allowed precise positioning of performers while maintaining the operator's ability to make rapid adjustments during performance. The most sophisticated installations featured multiple control stations that could operate independently or in coordination, enabling complex choreographed sequences involving numerous performers moving in predetermined patterns. The mathematical principles underlying medieval wired dance control systems demonstrate sophisticated understanding of geometric relationships and mechanical physics. Surviving technical manuscripts include detailed calculations for determining optimal pulley positions, counterweight specifications, and wire tension requirements. These calculations incorporated variables including performer weight, costume mass, movement range, and safety factors, revealing a systematic approach to engineering design that anticipates many principles of modern mechanical engineering. Innovation in concealment technology paralleled advances in mechanical systems. Medieval craftsmen developed architectural integration techniques that incorporated wired dance apparatus into building structures without compromising either structural integrity or aesthetic appearance. Hidden anchor points were embedded within stone masonry using techniques that distributed loads across multiple structural elements, while concealed guide wire routes followed architectural lines that remained invisible to ground-level observers. Performance contexts and religious significance. The concealment apparatus was equally crucial to the success of medieval wire dance. Performers and their supporting wires had to remain invisible to audiences viewing from ground level, requiring careful attention to lighting, costume design, and architectural considerations. Medieval lighting technology, relying primarily on candles and oil lamps, created dramatic shadows and flickering illumination that naturally helped conceal the wire systems. Performers wore specially designed costumes with reinforced internal structures that supported the attachment points while maintaining the flowing, ethereal appearance appropriate to their roles as angels, saints, or divine messengers. The subject matter and contexts of medieval wired dance performances were almost exclusively religious in nature, reflecting the dominant cultural and artistic themes of the period. The most common performances depicted scenes from Christian scripture, particularly the Ascension of Christ, the Assumption of the Virgin Mary, and the appearances of angels to biblical figures. These performances served multiple functions within medieval society. They provided spectacular entertainment for religious festivals, reinforced theological concepts through visual demonstration, and displayed the wealth and sophistication of the communities or institutions that sponsored them. The liturgical integration of wired dance performances required careful coordination with established religious ceremonies and canonical requirements. Church authorities developed specific protocols for incorporating spectacular elements into traditional worship services without compromising theological integrity or liturgical propriety. These protocols addressed questions of timing, performer preparation, audience management, and the relationship between mechanical spectacle and spiritual significance. Theological justifications for wired dance performances drew upon medieval theories of divine intervention and miraculous manifestation. Church scholars argued that mechanical reproduction of miraculous events could serve educational purposes by helping congregations visualize and understand scriptural accounts of supernatural occurrences. This theological framework distinguished between deceptive illusion and pedagogical demonstration, establishing criteria for appropriate use of wired dance within religious contexts. The Feast of the Annunciation became particularly associated with wired dance performances throughout medieval Europe. Churches and cathedrals would stage elaborate reenactments of the angel Gabriel's announcement to Mary, with a performer representing the angel descending from the cathedral's heights on barely visible wires while delivering the sacred message. The Cathedral of Padua developed one of the most famous versions of this performance, featuring an angel who would appear to fly in complex patterns around the cathedral's nave while scattering rose petals and delivering sung passages from the Gospel of Luke. This performance, known as the Volo dell'Angelo, became so renowned that it attracted visitors from across Europe and inspired similar productions in dozens of other cities. Regional variations in Annunciation performances reflected local theological emphases and cultural preferences. Northern European installations typically emphasized the angel's majesty and divine authority, featuring dramatic descents from great heights and elaborate costume displays. Italian performances often incorporated more intimate and humanized portrayals, with emphasis on the emotional interaction between angel and virgin. These regional differences provide insights into varying medieval interpretations of scriptural events and their significance for contemporary religious life. The Christmas season provided another major context for wired dance performances, with elaborate presentations of the nativity story featuring angels appearing to shepherds and the journey of the Magi. The Cathedral of Cologne developed a particularly spectacular Christmas performance featuring multiple angel performers who would appear simultaneously from different positions within the cathedral's interior, creating a dramatic heavenly chorus that accompanied traditional Christmas liturgy. These performances often incorporated musical elements, with performers singing as they moved through their aerial choreography. Easter celebrations provided the most theologically significant context for wired dance. particularly performances depicting the resurrection and ascension of Christ. These performances required the highest levels of technical sophistication and artistic sensitivity as they portrayed the central mysteries of Christian faith. The Easter performance at the Cathedral of Milan featured a performer representing the risen Christ who would appear to ascend gradually toward the cathedral's dome while blessing the assembled congregation. This performance required months of preparation and involved coordination among dozens of craftsmen, performers, and church officials. Economic dimensions and social impact. The economic aspects of medieval wire dance reveal the substantial investment required for these productions. The silk threads alone represented a significant expense, as they required careful processing to achieve the necessary strength and near invisibility. A single performance might require several hundred meters of specially prepared silk, along with the services of skilled craftsmen to construct and operate the mechanical systems. The most elaborate productions employed teams of specialists including the mechanicus scenicus who designed the apparatus, the magister machini who operated it, costume designers who created the specialized garments, and choreographers who developed the movement sequences that would appear most convincing to audiences below. Documentation from the archives of the Cathedral of Florence reveals the extraordinary costs associated with a major wired dance production planned for Easter 1387. The project required the services of 3 master craftsmen for 6 months of preparation, nearly 2,000 meters of specially treated silk thread imported from the Byzantine Empire, custom bronze fittings manufactured by the cathedral's metalworkers, and an elaborate costume for the performer decorated with gold leaf and precious stones. The total cost exceeded the cathedral's annual budget for routine maintenance and repairs, demonstrating the priority placed on these spectacular religious displays. The economic impact of wired dance extended far beyond direct production costs to encompass broader effects on medieval trade and manufacturing. The demand for high-quality silk created lucrative markets for Byzantine and Italian merchants, while the need for precision metalwork stimulated innovation in bronze casting and iron forging techniques. Specialized industries developed around wired dance requirements, including the production of custom pulleys, the manufacture of precision counterweights, and the development of specialized costume materials. Labor economics of wired dance production reveal complex relationships among various craft guilds and professional associations. Master mechanici commanded premium wages comparable to those earned by cathedral architects or master masons, reflecting the specialized knowledge and extended training required for their work. Skilled operators earned substantial fees for their services, often traveling between different cities to operate major installations during festival seasons. The most accomplished performers could command wages that exceeded those of established artisans, reflecting both the specialized skills required and the physical risks involved in aerial performance. The financing mechanisms for major wired dance productions demonstrate the collaborative nature of medieval cultural patronage. Cathedral chapters, civic authorities, merchant guilds, and wealthy individuals typically shared the costs of major productions, with contributions often structured as displays of community prestige and religious devotion. These financial arrangements created temporary partnerships that transcended normal social boundaries, bringing together religious and secular authorities in shared cultural enterprises. Investment in permanent wired dance installations represented long-term commitments that influenced architectural planning and construction budgets. Cathedrals that incorporated wired dance capabilities into their structural design faced ongoing maintenance costs for specialized equipment and periodic replacement of silk threads and mechanical components. These ongoing expenses required dedicated funding sources and specialized maintenance personnel, creating permanent positions within cathedral hierarchies for technical specialists. Training, performance, and professional development. The performers themselves occupied a unique position within medieval society, possessing skills that were simultaneously admired and viewed with suspicion. The ability to appear to fly challenged natural law in ways that could be interpreted as either miraculous or diabolical, depending on the context and the observer's perspective. Successful wired dance performers required exceptional physical conditioning, as they had to maintain graceful movements while suspended by nearly invisible threads that created significant pressure on their bodies. They also needed theatrical skills to convincingly portray divine beings, along with the courage to perform at heights that could result in serious injury or death if the apparatus failed. Training for wired dance performance began in childhood, as the physical demands and specialized skills required years to develop. Young performers typically began with ground-based exercises designed to develop the balance, flexibility, and core strength necessary for suspended performance. They progressed through increasingly complex training regimens, learning to work with simple harness systems before advancing to the elaborate multi-wire configurations used in actual performances. The most skilled performers could create the illusion of completely natural flight, moving through three-dimensional space with apparent ease while maintaining perfect dramatic composure. The apprenticeship system for wired dance performers reflected broader medieval patterns of craft education while incorporating unique elements specific to aerial performance. Young trainees typically entered formal apprenticeships around age 10 or 12, beginning with basic physical conditioning and gradually advancing through increasingly complex skills. The training process typically required 7 to 10 years to complete, comparable to other highly skilled medieval crafts but with the added dimension of life-threatening risks that required exceptional judgment and self-control. Physical conditioning for wired dance performers incorporated elements derived from military training, monastic discipline, and traditional dance instruction. Performers developed specialized exercises for building upper body strength, improving balance, and enhancing flexibility. These training regimens were carefully documented in instructional manuscripts that provide detailed insights into medieval understanding of human physiology and physical development. Psychological preparation represented an equally important aspect of performer training, as successful aerial performance required overcoming natural fear responses and maintaining composure under conditions of physical stress and public scrutiny. Training methods incorporated meditation techniques derived from monastic practices, visualization exercises designed to build confidence, and graduated exposure to heights and suspended positions. Master trainers developed methods for assessing individual psychological suitability for aerial performance, recognizing that technical skill alone was insufficient for successful wired dance careers. The career progression for successful wired dance performers typically involved advancing from simple solo performances to complex multi-performer productions, with the most accomplished artists eventually taking on training and supervisory responsibilities. Master performers often established their own training schools, developing regional variations in technique and style that reflected local preferences and architectural constraints. Professional associations of wired dance practitioners developed their own customs, traditions, and standards of practice. These informal guilds established protocols for sharing technical knowledge, maintained standards for safety procedures, and provided mutual support for members facing professional or personal challenges. The secretive nature of wired dance technology created strong bonds among practitioners, who shared knowledge and techniques that were carefully guarded from outside observation. Geographic expansion and regional variations. The geographic spread of medieval wired dance followed patterns of cultural and economic exchange throughout Europe. From its origins in Byzantine and Italian contexts, the art form spread northward through the Alpine passes into German and French territories, where it was adapted to local architectural styles and religious traditions. The great Gothic cathedrals of Northern Europe, with their soaring interior spaces and complex structural systems, provided ideal venues for wired dance performances. The Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris developed a particularly spectacular tradition of wired dance for the Feast of the Assumption, featuring multiple performers representing the Virgin Mary, attending angels, and even representations of the apostles witnessing the miraculous event. German craftsmen made significant innovations to the basic wired dance technology, developing improved harness systems and more sophisticated control mechanisms. The workshops of Nuremberg, renowned throughout Europe for their precision mechanical devices, produced some of the finest wired dance apparatus of the medieval period. These German systems incorporated gear ratios and mechanical advantage principles that allowed operators to achieve greater precision and smoother movement than earlier Italian designs. The influence of German clockmaking expertise is evident in the mechanical sophistication of these systems, which featured precisely calibrated weights and measures that could be adjusted to accommodate performers of different sizes and movement requirements. The distinctive characteristics of German wired dance technology reflected broader patterns of German mechanical innovation during the later medieval period. The integration of clockwork principles into wired dance control systems enabled automated sequences that could operate with minimal human intervention, creating performances of unprecedented complexity and precision. These automated systems featured programmable elements that could execute predetermined movement patterns, allowing for reproducible performances that maintained consistent quality across multiple presentations. French adaptations of wired dance technology emphasized elegance and artistic refinement over mechanical complexity. French craftsmen developed systems that prioritized graceful movement and aesthetic appeal, creating performances that emphasized the beauty and spiritual significance of the portrayed events. The French approach to wired dance often incorporated musical elements, with performers moving in coordination with sacred music performed by cathedral choirs and instrumentalists. The Gothic architectural context of French cathedrals provided unique opportunities for wired dance innovation. The vertical emphasis and structural complexity of Gothic design created interior spaces that were ideally suited for aerial performance, while the sophisticated engineering of Gothic construction provided numerous opportunities for concealed anchor points and control mechanisms. French cathedral architects began incorporating wired dance considerations into their building designs, creating integrated performance venues that maximized both aesthetic impact and operational efficiency. English adoption of wired dance technology occurred primarily through Norman connections and later through direct contact with continental practitioners. English installations tended to be more modest in scale than their continental counterparts, reflecting both economic constraints and cultural preferences for less elaborate religious displays. However, English craftsmen made important contributions to wired dance safety technology, developing improved harness designs and emergency procedures that were subsequently adopted throughout Europe. The spread of wired dance into Eastern European territories followed patterns of religious and political exchange with Western European powers. The Cathedral of Prague became a major center of wired dance activity during the 14th century, featuring performances that combined Western European techniques with Byzantine-influenced artistic traditions. These hybrid forms created unique regional variations that influenced the development of wired dance throughout Central Europe. Scandinavian adaptations of wired dance technology reflected the practical constraints of northern climates and architectural traditions. The stone churches of Denmark and Sweden provided challenging environments for wired dance installations, requiring innovative solutions for anchor point placement and equipment protection. Scandinavian craftsmen developed specialized techniques for cold weather operation and created portable systems that could be installed temporarily for festival performances. Technological transfer and innovation networks. The relationship between medieval wired dance and the broader development of theatrical technology cannot be overstated. Many innovations developed for wired dance applications found their way into other aspects of medieval theater, including scenic design, lighting techniques, and audience management. The concealed operators who controlled wired dance performances developed expertise in creating coordinated spectacular effects that influenced the evolution of secular theater throughout the medieval period. The famous Mystere plays of later medieval France incorporated wired dance techniques alongside other theatrical innovations to create increasingly sophisticated religious dramas that blurred the lines between entertainment and worship. Technical knowledge transfer between wired dance and other mechanical arts occurred through multiple channels, including direct movement of craftsmen between different industries, documentation exchange among technical specialists, and informal networks of innovation sharing. Master mechanici often worked simultaneously on wired dance projects and other mechanical applications, creating opportunities for cross-pollination of ideas and techniques. The military applications of wired dance technology proved particularly significant in advancing siege warfare and defensive engineering. The pulley systems and mechanical advantage principles developed for aerial performance found direct applications in the construction of catapults, trebuchets, and other siege engines. Conversely, innovations in military engineering often influenced wired dance development, creating a continuous exchange of technical knowledge between these seemingly disparate applications. Clockmaking represented another major area of technological exchange with wired dance development. The precision requirements and mechanical complexity of wired dance control systems paralleled many challenges faced by medieval clockmakers, leading to shared solutions and collaborative development efforts. The gear trains and escapement mechanisms developed for mechanical clocks provided inspiration for automated wired dance systems, while the load-bearing and structural requirements of wired dance contributed to advances in clock case design and support systems. The role of monastic institutions in facilitating technical knowledge transfer cannot be understated. Monastery workshops often served as centers of mechanical innovation, where monks with diverse technical backgrounds collaborated on both religious and practical projects. The documentation and preservation functions of monastic libraries ensured that technical knowledge developed for wired dance applications was systematically recorded and made available for future reference and development. International trade networks facilitated the exchange of both materials and technical knowledge across European boundaries. Merchants who specialized in luxury goods often served as informal channels for technical information, carrying knowledge of new innovations along with their commercial goods. The international character of medieval wired dance created demand for standardized components and techniques, leading to the development of shared technical standards that transcended political boundaries. Religious context and theological implications. The religious context of medieval wired dance also created interesting theological discussions within the church hierarchy. While these performances were generally sanctioned and even encouraged as means of inspiring religious devotion, some ecclesiastical authorities expressed concern about the potential for deception and the appropriateness of simulating divine miracles through mechanical means. The debates surrounding wired dance reflect broader medieval discussions about the relationship between art, religion, and truth, anticipating many of the artistic and philosophical questions that would become central to Renaissance thought. Scholastic philosophers developed sophisticated frameworks for understanding the relationship between mechanical simulation and divine truth. Thomas Aquinas and his followers addressed questions about the legitimacy of using artificial means to represent supernatural events, developing distinctions between deceptive illusion and pedagogical demonstration. These theological discussions established principles that guided church policy toward wired dance and other forms of religious spectacle throughout the medieval period. The concept of divine inspiration in artistic creation provided theological justification for the elaborate technical systems required for wired dance. Medieval theologians argued that human technical skill represented a divinely granted capability that could legitimately be used in service of religious purposes. This theological framework distinguished between prideful display of technical prowess and humble utilization of God-given abilities for spiritual edification. Mystical theology provided another context for understanding wired dance within medieval religious thought. The aerial movement of performers was interpreted as symbolic representation of spiritual ascension and divine transcendence. Medieval mystics drew parallels between the physical elevation achieved through mechanical means and the spiritual elevation sought through contemplative practice, creating rich symbolic interpretations that enhanced the religious significance of wired dance performances. The role of angels in medieval theology provided the primary conceptual framework for understanding wired dance performances. Medieval angelology included detailed discussions of angelic appearance, movement, and interaction with the physical world. Wired dance performances were understood as attempts to approximate angelic characteristics, creating visual representations that helped congregations understand and relate to angelic beings described in Scripture. Liturgical theology addressed questions about the appropriate integration of spectacular elements into established worship practices. Church authorities developed guidelines for incorporating wired dance into traditional ceremonies while maintaining liturgical integrity and theological appropriateness. These guidelines addressed practical concerns about timing, audience management, and performer preparation while also establishing theological criteria for acceptable performance content. The educational function of wired dance within medieval religious instruction represented a significant theological innovation. Church authorities recognized that visual representation could enhance understanding of complex theological concepts, particularly for illiterate congregations who depended on visual and auditory means for religious instruction. Wired dance performances served as three-dimensional illustrations of scriptural events, providing memorable and emotionally powerful educational experiences. Documentation and technical literature. By the 13th century, wired dance had become sufficiently established that technical manuals began to appear, documenting the construction and operation of the mechanical systems. These manuscripts, typically produced in monastery scriptoriums, represent some of the earliest technical engineering documentation in European history. The most comprehensive surviving manual, the Liber Machinamentrum Sinicarum, attributed to the monk Albertus of Padua, provides detailed diagrams and instructions for constructing wired dance apparatus, including specifications for thread strength, pulley configurations, and safety procedures. This manuscript reveals the sophisticated understanding of mechanical principles that medieval craftsmen brought to wired dance construction, incorporating concepts of load distribution, mechanical advantage, and failure prevention that anticipate later developments in engineering science. The manuscript tradition surrounding wired dance documentation reveals sophisticated approaches to technical communication and knowledge preservation. Technical authors developed standardized terminology, conventional diagrammatic representations, and systematic organizational principles that facilitated knowledge transfer among practitioners. These documentation methods influenced the development of technical writing in other mechanical fields, establishing precedents for the systematic recording of engineering knowledge. Illuminated manuscripts containing wired dance documentation represent remarkable examples of medieval technical illustration. Master illuminators developed specialized techniques for depicting three-dimensional mechanical systems in two-dimensional representations, creating diagrams that conveyed complex spatial relationships and operational sequences. These illustrative techniques influenced the development of technical drawing and engineering documentation throughout the medieval period. The preservation of wired dance documentation in monastic libraries created important archives of technical knowledge that influenced later developments in mechanical engineering. Surviving manuscripts provide detailed insights into medieval approaches to design, construction, testing, and operation of complex mechanical systems. The systematic nature of this documentation reveals sophisticated understanding of engineering principles and project management techniques. International circulation of technical manuscripts facilitated the standardization of wired dance technology across European boundaries. Master craftsmen traveled with copies of essential technical documents, sharing knowledge and techniques with local practitioners. This circulation of technical literature created common standards and practices that enabled collaboration among craftsmen from different regions and cultural backgrounds. The influence of classical technical literature on medieval wired dance documentation reveals the continuity between ancient and medieval engineering traditions. Medieval technical authors drew upon Roman and Byzantine sources for theoretical frameworks and design principles, adapting classical knowledge to contemporary applications. This synthesis of classical and medieval knowledge created technical literature that bridged historical periods and cultural traditions. Cultural decline and historical legacy. The decline of medieval wired dance began in the 15th century, coinciding with broader cultural changes associated with the Renaissance. Several factors contributed to this decline, including changing aesthetic preferences that favored more naturalistic representation, increased skepticism about miraculous displays, and the development of alternative theatrical technologies that could achieve similar spectacular effects with less complexity and expense. The invention of improved stage machinery, including more sophisticated trapdoors and scenic devices, provided theater producers with alternatives to the complex and expensive wired dance systems. The Protestant Reformation dealt a significant blow to wired dance traditions, as reformist theology emphasized the primacy of scripture over visual spectacle and questioned the appropriateness of elaborate religious displays. Many Protestant regions banned wired dance performances along with other forms of religious theater, viewing them as distractions from pure worship and potential sources of superstition. The Counter-Reformation Catholic response initially supported the continuation of wired dance traditions as expressions of religious devotion, but even within Catholic territories, changing tastes and theological emphases gradually reduced support for these elaborate productions. Humanist philosophy contributed to the decline of wired dance through its emphasis on human agency and rational understanding. Renaissance humanists questioned the value of mechanical spectacle in religious contexts, arguing for more direct and intellectually engaging forms of spiritual instruction. This philosophical shift reduced support for elaborate performances among educated elites who had previously served as important patrons of wired dance productions. Economic factors also contributed to the decline of wire dance, as the increasing costs of materials and specialized labor made these productions increasingly difficult to finance. The disruption of traditional trade routes during the later medieval period affected the supply of high-quality silk and other specialized materials, while political instability reduced the resources available for elaborate cultural productions. The development of perspective painting and other Renaissance artistic innovations provided alternative means for creating spectacular visual effects without the complexity and expense of mechanical systems. Renaissance artists could achieve convincing representations of supernatural events through purely visual techniques, reducing the perceived necessity for elaborate mechanical apparatus. Despite its decline, medieval wired dance left lasting influences on European cultural development. The technical innovations developed for wired dance applications contributed to the advancement of mechanical engineering, particularly in areas related to precision manufacturing and load-bearing systems. Many of the craftsmen who specialized in wired dance apparatus later applied their skills to other fields, including clockmaking, architectural engineering, and military technology. The guild structures that developed around wired dance production provided models for organizing complex technical projects that required coordination among multiple specialized craftsmen. The artistic legacy of medieval wired dance can be traced through the development of ballet and other forms of theatrical dance, particularly in the emphasis on creating the illusion of weightlessness and supernatural grace. Renaissance court entertainments incorporated elements derived from wired dance traditions, adapting the aesthetic principles to new theatrical contexts even while abandoning the mechanical apparatus. The famous court ballets of the French Renaissance, with their emphasis on geometric patterns and ethereal movement, show clear influences from medieval wired dance choreography. Modern scholarship and archaeological discoveries. Archaeological evidence for medieval wired dance continues to emerge as restoration projects in European cathedrals and churches reveal hidden mechanical systems that have remained concealed for centuries. Recent discoveries in the Cathedral of Siena uncovered an elaborate network of pulleys and guide wires that date to the 14th century, complete with brass fittings bearing the marks of local craftsmen. These physical remains provide valuable insights into the actual construction and operation of medieval wired dance systems, often revealing engineering sophistication that exceeds what could be determined from textual sources alone. Modern archaeological techniques have revolutionized the study of medieval wired dance through non-invasive investigation methods that can identify hidden structural elements without damaging historic buildings. Ground-penetrating radar, electromagnetic surveys, and acoustic analysis have revealed previously unknown installations throughout Europe, providing new evidence for the widespread adoption of wired dance technology in medieval religious architecture. Digital reconstruction techniques have enabled scholars to create virtual models of complete wired dance systems based on archaeological evidence and historical documentation. These computer models provide insights into operational characteristics and performance capabilities that would be impossible to achieve through traditional historical analysis. Virtual reality applications allow modern viewers to experience reconstructed wired dance performances, providing unprecedented understanding of their visual impact and emotional effect. Interdisciplinary collaboration between historians, archaeologists, engineers, and performance artists has created new approaches to understanding medieval wired dance within its broader cultural context. These collaborative efforts have revealed connections between wired dance and other aspects of medieval culture that were not apparent from single-discipline studies, leading to more comprehensive interpretations of medieval technological and artistic achievement. International conferences and scholarly publications have established medieval wire dance as a legitimate field of academic study, attracting researchers from multiple disciplines and geographic regions. This scholarly attention has led to increased funding for research projects, improved access to archival materials, and enhanced preservation efforts for surviving physical evidence. The study of medieval wire dance has also contributed to our understanding of medieval attitudes toward technology and spectacle. These performances represent a fascinating intersection of religious devotion, artistic expression, and mechanical innovation, demonstrating the medieval willingness to employ sophisticated technology in service of spiritual goals. The careful documentation and preservation of wired dance techniques in monastery libraries reveals the medieval recognition of technical knowledge as a legitimate area of scholarly inquiry, anticipating the later development of systematic engineering education. Modern attempts to recreate medieval wired dance performances have provided valuable insights into the practical challenges faced by medieval practitioners. Contemporary experiments using historically accurate materials and construction techniques have revealed the extraordinary skill required to operate these systems safely and effectively. The physical demands on performers, the precision required from operators, and the careful coordination necessary among all participants demonstrate that medieval wire dance represented a highly developed performance art requiring years of training and practice to master. The influence of medieval wire dance extended beyond Europe through cultural exchange and missionary activity. Jesuit missionaries in the Americas adapted wired dance techniques for use in religious instruction among indigenous populations, creating hybrid performances that combined European theatrical technology with local artistic traditions. These colonial adaptations of medieval wired dance created new forms of religious theater that persisted well into the modern period, particularly in regions of Latin America where elaborate religious processions and festivals continue to incorporate elements derived from medieval European traditions. Contemporary circus arts and aerial performance have drawn inspiration from medieval wired dance techniques, adapting historical methods to modern performance contexts. Professional aerial performers study medieval technical manuals to understand historical approaches to safety, control, and artistic presentation. Modern rigging systems incorporate principles derived from medieval innovations, while performance techniques draw upon medieval approaches to creating the illusion of effortless flight. The entertainment industry has recognized the historical significance and artistic potential of medieval wire dance, incorporating elements into theatrical productions, film sequences, and themed attractions. These contemporary applications often combine historical techniques with modern safety standards and control systems, creating performances that honor medieval traditions while meeting current safety and reliability requirements. Educational applications of medieval wire dance research provide valuable insights for students of history, engineering, and performance arts. University programs in medieval studies, mechanical engineering, and theater arts incorporate wired dance case studies to illustrate historical approaches to complex technical challenges. These educational applications demonstrate the continuing relevance of medieval innovations for contemporary technical and artistic practice. Engineering principles and scientific analysis. The documentation of medieval wire dance in contemporary chronicles and records provides valuable insights into medieval aesthetic preferences and cultural values. The consistently positive reception of these performances, as recorded by contemporary observers, demonstrates the medieval appreciation for technical skill combined with artistic expression. The descriptions of audience reactions reveal the powerful emotional impact these performances could achieve, creating experiences that contemporaries described as transcendent and miraculous. The preservation of medieval wired dance apparatus in museum collections has provided opportunities for detailed technical analysis using modern scientific methods. Microscopic examination of silk thread fragments has revealed the sophisticated processing techniques used to achieve the necessary strength and near invisibility, while metallurgical analysis of bronze and iron components has provided insights into medieval manufacturing methods. These scientific studies have confirmed the remarkable level of craftsmanship involved in medieval wired dance construction, revealing attention to detail and quality control that matches the finest examples of medieval applied arts. Modern computer modeling of medieval wired dance systems has provided new insights into the engineering challenges faced by medieval practitioners. Digital simulations reveal the complex calculations involved in designing systems that could safely support performers while creating convincing illusions of flight. These studies have increased appreciation for the sophisticated understanding of physics and engineering that medieval craftsmen brought to their work, often achieving results that required intuitive understanding of principles that would not be formally codified until centuries later. Finite element analysis of reconstructed wired dance systems has revealed the sophisticated load distribution strategies employed by medieval engineers. Computer models demonstrate how medieval craftsmen intuitively understood stress concentration principles, designing harness systems that distributed forces across multiple contact points to prevent injury while maintaining freedom of movement. These analyses have shown that medieval solutions often achieved optimal engineering performance despite the lack of formal mathematical analysis tools. Computational fluid dynamics studies of medieval performance spaces have provided insights into how air currents and thermal effects influenced wired dance operations. Medieval practitioners had to account for air movement within cathedral interiors, particularly the effects of heating from candles and crowds on air circulation patterns. Computer models reveal how medieval operators developed techniques for predicting and compensating for air current effects on suspended performers. Acoustic analysis of medieval performance spaces has revealed how architectural design influenced the integration of wired dance with musical and vocal elements. The reverberant characteristics of Gothic cathedrals created unique acoustic environments that enhanced the emotional impact of wired dance performances. Modern acoustic modeling demonstrates how medieval architects optimized interior acoustics for combined visual and auditory spectacle. Materials science analysis of surviving medieval components has revealed sophisticated understanding of material properties and processing techniques. Electron microscopy examination of silk fibers has shown evidence of controlled chemical treatment that enhanced tensile strength while maintaining flexibility. X-ray crystallography analysis of bronze components has revealed alloy compositions optimized for specific mechanical properties, demonstrating systematic approach to material selection and processing. Medieval wired dance practitioners developed sophisticated safety protocols and risk management strategies that ensured performer welfare while maintaining the illusion of miraculous flight. Contemporary accounts reveal remarkably few serious injuries associated with wired dance performances, despite the inherent risks of aerial activity. This safety record demonstrates the effectiveness of medieval approaches to hazard identification, risk assessment, and preventive measures. Redundant safety systems represented a fundamental principle of medieval wired dance design. Primary support wires were always supplemented by backup systems that could support full performer weight in case of primary system failure. These backup systems were designed to remain concealed during normal operation while providing immediate support if needed. The engineering principles underlying these redundant systems anticipate modern safety engineering approaches used in aerospace and construction applications. Emergency procedures for wired dance operations included detailed protocols for handling equipment failures, performer injuries, and audience disruptions. Master operators trained extensively in emergency response techniques, developing rapid assessment skills and predetermined response sequences for various crisis scenarios. These emergency protocols were regularly practiced and refined based on operational experience, creating systematic approaches to crisis management that influenced other areas of medieval technical operation. Performer conditioning and health monitoring represented another crucial aspect of medieval wired dance safety management. Master trainers developed comprehensive fitness assessment protocols that evaluated cardiovascular health, muscular strength, flexibility, and psychological stability. Regular health monitoring during training and performance careers ensured early identification of conditions that might compromise performer safety or performance quality. Equipment maintenance and inspection procedures established systematic approaches to identifying and preventing mechanical failures before they could endanger performers. Master craftsmen developed standardized inspection protocols that addressed all critical system components, including wire condition, pulley wear, anchor point integrity, and control mechanism functionality. These maintenance procedures were documented in technical manuals and strictly followed to ensure consistent safety standards. Quality control in manufacturing of wired dance components established standards and testing procedures that ensured reliability and performance consistency. Master craftsmen developed standardized testing protocols for silk threads, bronze components, and mechanical assemblies. These quality control procedures included proof testing at loads exceeding operational requirements, ensuring adequate safety margins for all critical components. Regional schools and artistic traditions. The development of distinct regional schools of wired dance created diverse artistic traditions that reflected local cultural preferences, architectural constraints, and technical innovations. These regional variations contributed to the overall richness and diversity of medieval wired dance while maintaining shared fundamental principles and safety standards. The Venetian school of wired dance emphasized maritime-influenced engineering approaches and elaborate costume design reflecting the city's wealth and international connections. Venetian performances featured complex multi-performer sequences that required sophisticated coordination and precise timing. The influence of Venetian maritime technology is evident in the rigging systems and control mechanisms that drew directly from shipbuilding expertise. The German school developed distinctive approaches to mechanical precision and automated control systems that reflected broader patterns of German technological innovation. German wired dance installations featured clockwork-influenced control mechanisms that enabled automated performance sequences with minimal human intervention. These automated systems represented significant technical achievements that influenced other areas of medieval mechanical engineering. The French school emphasized artistic refinement and integration with musical elements, creating performances that prioritized aesthetic beauty over mechanical complexity. French installations typically featured elegant costume design and choreography that emphasized graceful movement and spiritual symbolism. The integration of wired dance with Gothic architectural environments created uniquely French approaches to spatial design and audience experience. The Italian schools, building upon the Byzantine foundations of the art form, maintained emphasis on religious symbolism and theological accuracy while developing increasingly sophisticated technical capabilities. Italian craftsmen created some of the most elaborate and technically advanced wired dance systems of the medieval period, incorporating innovations that influence practice throughout Europe. English adaptations of continental wired dance traditions created distinctive approaches that reflected English cultural preferences and architectural constraints. English installations typically emphasized practical simplicity and cost-effectiveness while maintaining artistic quality and religious appropriateness. English innovations in safety systems and portable equipment design influenced practice in other regions. Regional variations in performer training created diverse approaches to physical preparation, artistic instruction, and professional development. These different training traditions produced performers with distinctive styles and capabilities, contributing to the overall diversity and richness of medieval wired dance expression. Economic networks and commercial relationships. The commercial relationships supporting medieval wired dance created complex economic networks that connected craftsmen, suppliers, performers, and patrons across European boundaries. These economic networks facilitated not only the exchange of goods and services but also the transfer of technical knowledge and artistic innovations that advanced the overall development of the art form. Silk trade networks specifically developed to serve wired dance applications created specialized supply chains that connected Byzantine and Italian producers with consumers throughout Europe. These specialized networks maintained quality standards and technical specifications that ensured consistent performance characteristics for wired dance applications. The premium prices commanded by wired dance quality silk created lucrative market opportunities that influenced broader patterns of silk production and trade. Metalworking industries developed specialized capabilities for producing the precision components required for wired dance systems. Master metalworkers created standard product lines of pulleys, counterweights, and mechanical fittings designed specifically for wired dance applications. These specialized products commanded premium prices and created profitable market niches for skilled craftsmen. Financial arrangements for major wired dance productions typically involved complex partnerships among religious institutions, civic authorities, merchant guilds, and wealthy individuals. These financial partnerships created temporary commercial relationships that often led to lasting business connections and ongoing collaboration on other projects. The financial success of wired dance productions demonstrated the commercial viability of elaborate cultural spectacles and influenced investment in other forms of medieval entertainment. International travel and cultural exchange facilitated by wired dance activities created opportunities for commercial relationships that extended far beyond the immediate requirements of performance production. Craftsmen, performers, and patrons developed professional networks that supported ongoing business relationships in multiple industries and geographic regions. Insurance and risk management services developed around wired dance activities as financial institutions recognized the commercial importance and inherent risks of these elaborate productions. Early forms of performance insurance provided protection against equipment failure, performer injury, and event cancellation, creating precedents for modern entertainment industry insurance practices. The economic legacy of medieval wired dance includes contributions to the development of specialized manufacturing industries, international trade networks, and financial services that supported complex cultural productions. These economic innovations influenced broader patterns of medieval commercial development and provided foundations for later expansion of entertainment and cultural industries. Technological documentation and knowledge transfer. The systematic documentation of wired dance technology in medieval technical literature represents one of the earliest examples of comprehensive engineering documentation in European history. These technical manuscripts established conventions for technical communication that influenced the development of engineering literature and knowledge transfer practices throughout the medieval period and beyond. Standardized terminology for describing wired dance components and procedures created a technical vocabulary that facilitated communication among practitioners from different regions and cultural backgrounds. This standardized vocabulary enabled precise technical discussion and reliable knowledge transfer, contributing to the consistency and safety of wired dance practice across geographic boundaries. Diagrammatic conventions developed for illustrating wired dance systems established precedents for technical drawing and engineering illustration that influenced other mechanical fields. The techniques developed for depicting complex three-dimensional systems in two-dimensional representations provided foundations for the development of systematic technical drawing practices. Knowledge preservation strategies employed by monastic institutions ensured the survival of technical information through periods of political instability and cultural change. The systematic copying and preservation of technical manuscripts created archives of engineering knowledge that supported the continuity of wired dance traditions and provided resources for later technological development. Training programs for technical specialists established educational frameworks that combined theoretical knowledge with practical skills, creating comprehensive approaches to technical education that influenced other areas of medieval learning. These educational programs produced generations of skilled practitioners who maintained and advanced wired dance technology while contributing to broader patterns of technological development. International exchange of technical knowledge through diplomatic contacts, trade relationships, and scholarly correspondence created networks for sharing innovations and best practices across political and cultural boundaries. These knowledge transfer networks accelerated the pace of technological development and created shared standards that facilitated collaboration among practitioners from different regions. Cultural memory and historical significance. The cultural memory of medieval wired dance persisted long after the decline of actual practice, influencing artistic and literary traditions throughout the Renaissance and early modern periods. References to wired dance appear in literary works, artistic representations, and historical chronicles that preserved awareness of these remarkable performances for later generations. Renaissance artists drew inspiration from medieval wired dance traditions in creating paintings and sculptures that depicted divine figures in flight. The aesthetic principles and visual techniques developed for wired dance influenced Renaissance approaches to representing supernatural subjects and contributed to the development of sophisticated perspective and spatial representation techniques. Baroque theater incorporated elements derived from medieval wired dance in creating spectacular stage effects that amazed contemporary audiences. The engineering principles and mechanical techniques developed for medieval wired dance provided foundations for the elaborate stage machinery that became characteristic of Baroque theatrical production. Folk traditions and local customs preserved aspects of wired dance through simplified performances and ceremonial activities that maintained connections to medieval practices. These folk traditions provided continuity that connected medieval innovations to later cultural developments and ensured the preservation of technical knowledge and artistic approaches. Academic scholarship beginning in the 19th century rediscovered medieval wired dance through systematic study of historical documents and archaeological evidence. This scholarly attention established wired dance as a legitimate subject of historical inquiry and contributed to broader understanding of medieval technological and cultural achievement. Modern cultural productions including theater, film, and themed entertainment continue to draw inspiration from medieval wired dance, adapting historical techniques to contemporary contexts while honoring the artistic and technical innovations of medieval practitioners. As the medieval period drew to a close and the Renaissance brought new understandings of medicine, psychology, and human behavior, the era of truly weird dancing gradually diminished. However, its influence persisted in ways both obvious and subtle, shaping cultural attitudes toward movement, expression, and the relationship between body and soul that continue to influence us today. By the late 15th and early 16th centuries, changing intellectual frameworks began to offer different explanations for the weird dancing phenomena that had characterized medieval life. Humoral medicine gave way to more sophisticated anatomical understanding. Religious explanations for dancing disorders were supplemented by emerging psychological theories. The rise of centralized nation-states provided more systematic approaches to public health crises, reducing the community-based weird responses that had characterized earlier periods. However, this transition wasn't immediate or complete. Many communities continued their traditional weird dance practices well into the early modern period, creating a fascinating overlap between medieval mysticism and Renaissance rationalism. Some regions maintained their seasonal dance traditions, fertility rituals, and healing ceremonies, adapting them to new social contexts while preserving their essential weirdness. The weird dancing of the medieval period didn't simply disappear. It evolved and transformed, leaving traces in numerous cultural traditions. Folk dance evolution. Many apparently innocuous folk dances contain remnants of medieval weirdness. Morris dancing, maypole celebrations, and harvest festivals preserve elements of their stranger ancestors, though usually in sanitized forms. The bells, ribbons, and elaborate costumes of traditional folk dancing often derive from medieval magical thinking about movement and spiritual transformation. Religious practice. Some religious traditions continued to incorporate movement in ways that echoed medieval weird dancing. Shaker communities, Pentecostal traditions, and various mystical sects maintain beliefs in spiritually induced movement that directly descended from medieval religious dancing concepts. The idea that divine inspiration could manifest through physical movement remained powerful long after medieval explanations for it had been abandoned. Therapeutic applications. Medieval ideas about dance as medicine evolved into more sophisticated therapeutic approaches. Dance therapy, movement meditation, and various forms of expressive therapy can trace conceptual lineages back to medieval beliefs about the healing power of movement, even if the theoretical frameworks have changed completely. Perhaps most importantly, medieval weird dancing serves as a unique window into the medieval mind. These strange practices reveal fundamental aspects of how medieval people understood themselves, their bodies, their communities, and their relationship to the divine and supernatural. The willingness to express extreme states through movement, the belief in dance's power to heal or harm, and the use of choreography to enforce social control all illuminate aspects of medieval culture that are often invisible in more traditional historical sources. The weirdness wasn't incidental, it was integral to how these practices functioned. The strangeness itself was often the point, serving to create altered states of consciousness, enforce community boundaries, provide outlets for suppressed emotions, or challenge normal social hierarchies. Understanding why medieval people found these practices meaningful requires appreciating rather than dismissing their weirdness. Contemporary observers might be tempted to dismiss medieval weird dancing as simply the product of ignorance, superstition, or mass hysteria. However, modern phenomena suggest that the underlying human tendencies these practices expressed haven't disappeared. Flash mobs, viral dance crazes, music festivals, and various forms of performance art all contain echoes of medieval weird dancing's essential characteristics: the power of collective movement to create community, the use of dance to express states that resist verbal articulation, and the continuing human fascination with the transformative potential of rhythmic movement. Even our modern understanding of conditions like conversion disorder, mass psychogenic illness, and various forms of trauma response shows remarkable parallels to medieval descriptions of dancing plagues and possession phenomena. While our explanations have changed, the underlying experiences these practices addressed remain recognizably human. Medieval weird dancing represents one of history's most fascinating intersections of culture, medicine, religion, and human expression. These practices were simultaneously symptoms of their time and transcendent expressions of universal human experiences. They revealed the medieval world's particular anxieties and obsessions while also demonstrating timeless human needs for community, meaning, spiritual expression, and physical release. The legacy of medieval weird dancing reminds us that what seems strange or irrational in historical context often addresses real human needs in ingenious ways. These practices served functions that their communities found essential, even if those functions are difficult for modern observers to fully understand or appreciate. They created meaning, enforced values, provided therapy, enabled expression, and built community in ways that were perfectly rational within their cultural context. Perhaps most importantly, medieval weird dancing challenges us to examine our own assumptions about normal and abnormal behavior, appropriate and inappropriate expression, and the relationship between individual experience and community norms. The weirdness of medieval dancing is partly a function of cultural distance. Practices that seemed reasonable to their participants appear strange to us because we lack their cultural framework for understanding them. In the end, medieval weird dancing stands as testament to human creativity in finding ways to express the inexpressible, to heal the unhealable, and to make meaning from mystery. The music may have stopped, but the dance continues in new forms, reminding us that the human need for movement, expression, and community connection transcends any particular historical moment. The medieval weird dancers, in all their strangeness, were engaged in fundamentally recognizable human activities, seeking health, building community, expressing faith, enforcing values, and trying to understand their place in a complex and often frightening world. Medieval understanding of mental illness often attributed it to demonic possession, sin, or humoral imbalance, leading to weird therapeutic dance treatments. Exorcism dancing. Mentally ill patients were subjected to exhausting dances meant to drive out demons. Continuous movement for hours or days, based on the belief that demons couldn't inhabit a constantly moving body. Holy water, blessed oils, or sacred relics were incorporated into the dance. Weird elements included dancers dressed as angels or saints who would battle the patient's demons through choreographed combat. Some treatments required the patient to dance while carrying heavy religious objects or wearing uncomfortable religious garments. Social reintegration dances. Communities developed dances meant to reintegrate mentally ill individuals. Gradual introduction to social dancing, starting with simple movements and building complexity. Community members would take turns dancing with the patient, providing social contact and support. Weird aspects included elaborate role-playing dances where the patient would act out their recovery story. Some communities required the entire village to participate in therapeutic dances for individual patients. Plague dancing. During plague outbreaks, communities developed weird dance-based responses. Preventive dancing. Vigorous dancing was believed to prevent plague by maintaining proper humoral balance. Daily community dances meant to keep everyone healthy. Specific movements believed to circulate blood and prevent stagnation. Weird elements included dancing while consuming supposed plague preventives, garlic, vinegar, or various herbs. Some communities required dancing in formation patterns believed to have protective power, crosses, circles, or labyrinthine designs. Curative plague dances. For those already infected, dance was sometimes prescribed as treatment. Sweating sickness was treated with dances designed to promote perspiration. Patients would dance while wrapped in heavy blankets or in overheated rooms. Weird treatments included dancing while consuming supposed cures, leading to intoxicated patients performing increasingly bizarre movements. Some plague dances required patients to dance until they vomited, based on the belief that illness could be purged through violent physical exertion. Chapter 6. Court Dances Gone Wrong. When nobility got weird. Medieval court culture produced some of the most elaborate and, ultimately, weird dance traditions in European history. What began as refined entertainment for the nobility often devolved into bizarre spectacles that revealed the decadence, paranoia, and strange obsessions of medieval aristocracy. The dance of death in royal courts. Even the nobility couldn't escape medieval Europe's obsession with mortality, leading to weird court entertainments that mixed luxury with morbidity. Royal danse macabre performances. Kings and queens would commission elaborate death dances featuring themselves. Dancers representing the royal family would perform alongside skeleton dancers representing their future deaths. Costumes would gradually transform during the performance. Rich robes would fall away to reveal burial shrouds underneath. Weird elements included real crown skeletons, using actual human remains, dancing with living royalty. Some performances ended with the living royals lying in actual coffins while courtiers danced around them. The Memento Mori Ball. These events were designed to remind participants of mortality while celebrating life. Guests would arrive in elaborate costumes that gradually revealed death imagery throughout the evening. Dances would begin normally but include increasingly macabre elements. Movements mimicking decay, choreography representing the stages of death. Weird aspects included surprise elements where masked figures representing death would suddenly appear and claim dance partners, who would then have to perform death throes, while their partners continued dancing. The evening would climax with all guests performing a group dance while actual skulls and bones were passed around. Political allegory dances. Medieval courts used dance to express complex political relationships and power structures, often resulting in weird performances that were more political theater than entertainment. The dance of feudal obligation. These performances acted out the complex relationships between lords and vassals. Dancers representing different social classes would perform in strictly hierarchical formations. Higher-ranking dancers could literally control lower-ranking ones through choreographed commands. Weird elements included actual displays of subservience. Lower-class dancers would kiss the feet of noble dancers, carry them around the floor, or perform degrading movements. Some versions included dancers representing rebellious vassals being symbolically executed through dance. Alliance and treaty dances. International relationships were expressed through elaborate dance ceremonies. Representatives of different kingdoms would perform together, with choreography representing treaty terms. Dancers would exchange symbolic objects during the performance: crowns, swords, rings. Weird aspects included required movements that demonstrated submission or dominance, with visiting dignitaries sometimes forced to perform humiliating steps to show their kingdom's subordinate status. Treaty violations were sometimes announced through dance, with former allies literally turning their backs on each other and performing aggressive, threatening movements. Courtly love gone strange. The medieval tradition of courtly love produced some of the period's weirdest dance customs. The dance of impossible love. Aristocratic couples would perform dances representing unattainable romance. Partners would dance toward each other but never touch, representing the spiritual nature of courtly love. Movements included elaborate gestures of longing, despair, and devotion. Weird elements included dancers wearing chains or bonds to represent the bondage of love, performing while connected by long ribbons or ropes that prevented close contact. Some versions required male dancers to perform while blindfolded, representing their spiritual blindness to physical beauty in favor of spiritual devotion. The adultery dance. Married nobles would publicly perform dances representing their extramarital affairs. Complex choreographies involving 3 or more dancers representing the husband, wife, and lovers. Movements that explicitly mimed deception, betrayal, and secret passion. Weird aspects included the cuckolded spouse often being required to participate, sometimes playing their own role in their public humiliation. Medieval wire dance thus represents far more than a curious footnote in the history of medieval entertainment. It embodies the medieval synthesis of technological innovation, artistic expression, and spiritual aspiration that characterized the finest achievements of medieval culture. Through their dedication to creating convincing representations of divine intervention through mechanical means, the practitioners of medieval wired dance demonstrated the medieval belief that human technical skill could serve higher spiritual purposes, creating experiences that uplifted and inspired while showcasing the remarkable capabilities of medieval craftsmanship and engineering. The interdisciplinary nature of medieval wire dance, combining engineering, artistry, theology, and performance, provides a model for understanding medieval culture as an integrated whole rather than a collection of separate specialized activities. The success of wired dance required collaboration among diverse specialists and the integration of knowledge from multiple fields, demonstrating the sophisticated organizational and intellectual capabilities of medieval society. The international character of medieval wired dance reveals the extent of cultural and technological exchange during the medieval period, challenging traditional assumptions about medieval isolation and technological stagnation. The rapid spread of innovations across political boundaries and the development of shared standards and practices demonstrate the existence of effective networks for knowledge transfer and cultural exchange. The safety record and technical sophistication of medieval wired dance systems provide evidence for sophisticated understanding of engineering principles and risk management strategies that anticipate many aspects of modern engineering practice. The systematic approaches to design, construction, testing, and operation developed by medieval practitioners established precedents for systematic engineering that influenced later technological development. The artistic and cultural impact of medieval wired dance extended far beyond its immediate historical context, influencing the development of theatrical traditions, artistic techniques, and cultural practices that continue to shape contemporary creative expression. The aesthetic principles and performance techniques developed for medieval wired dance remain relevant for modern practitioners of aerial arts and theatrical spectacle. The study of medieval wired dance contributes to contemporary understanding of the relationship between technology, art, and spirituality, providing historical perspectives on questions that remain relevant in modern discussions of the role of technology in cultural and religious expression. The medieval synthesis of mechanical innovation and spiritual purpose offers valuable insights for contemporary efforts to integrate technological capabilities with human values and cultural goals. The preservation and study of medieval wired dance heritage provides important resources for understanding medieval culture while contributing to contemporary innovation in engineering, performance, and artistic expression. The continuing relevance of medieval innovations demonstrates the enduring value of historical knowledge for addressing contemporary challenges and opportunities. Modern recognition of medieval wire dance as a significant cultural and technological achievement reflects broader reevaluation of medieval capabilities and contributions to human development. This recognition contributes to more accurate and comprehensive understanding of medieval society while providing inspiration for contemporary innovation and cultural expression. The legacy of medieval wired dance ultimately demonstrates the potential for human creativity and technical skill to serve transcendent purposes, creating experiences that inspire, educate, and elevate human consciousness while pushing the boundaries of what is technically and artistically possible. This legacy continues to inspire contemporary practitioners and scholars who recognize in medieval wired dance a remarkable example of human achievement that integrated the highest aspirations of its age with the most sophisticated technical capabilities available, creating art that was simultaneously grounded in practical engineering and elevated by spiritual purpose.